My sleeper is mostly, I don't know, with quarterback, it's hard just because there's so few of them. So like, I think maybe Mariota will come in and like be a guy, or Taysom, or maybe Watson is a guy that you stash and bank on the.
You have only said players who are not playing.
Well, that's sleepers.
Like backup. That's
who am I gonna say? Dude,
you gotta say some of the big guys.
Quarterbacks.
Well, I didn't say Cam because I knew you were gonna say Cam.
That's very gracious of you.
I don't think I don't think Derek Carr's a sleeper. I'm deep in the bag, you guys.
All right, if you guys want players that no one else is gonna have, Theo's got you.
You're gonna thank me when everyone is scrambling to try to pick up Taysom Hill, and you already have him on your team.
Yo guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined by, as always, the Iowa-born corn farmer and Dario Sarge. How are you guys today?
I'm great.
Fantastic.
Theo's on his phone today because his mic broke. So this is very sad.
I went to a candy store, and they had one of those Pop-It things. I don't know if you guys know what they are.
Like
you've seen them. There's no like it's one of those. Okay, look, it's one of those like little things, and it has like you've seen these. You've seen
okay,
these.
Yeah, I see them on TikTok sometimes.
And I didn't get the hype surrounding them, but I bought one. It was $3 for one that looks like a cupcake, and I'm having a good time with it. I understand it now. I get the hype.
Is this a promotional?
No, I don't know the brand, but if you see one of these, might be worth a pickup.
Can we get a Pop-It sponsor?
Matt's going to get locked in on this podcast with his little fidget toy here. He's going to be laser focused. We're doing fantasy sleepers in this episode, right? And I'm a little bit concerned because I'm competing in fantasy leagues with you guys.
That's what I was about to say. I was about to say the same thing.
Oh, shoot.
So for everyone listening right now, I'm about to give you some great sleepers. And this is for you guys, like the audience. If any of you two pick the guys I'm about to say, I will fly to Ohio and kick your ass.
All right, I'll tell you what. I will not go out of my way to pick the guys that you're about to say.
Yeah,
But like, I can't make any promises because you never know how the draft's going to fall. I think the challenge for us this episode is not talking about this, like the 10 same players we've been talking about since we started the podcast.
I think I did a pretty good job of like.
No J.K. Dobbins. We love J.K. Dobbins, but no
J.K. Dobbins is not on my list.
J.K. Dobbins is not
on my list. But
if you don't already know about him, you're not winning the league.
Facts. No, first of all, if you don't already know about J.K. Dobbins, you haven't been like listening to Stay Hot, like at all.
Right.
First of all. But as always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, leave a review, whatever you can do. We're available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And if you haven't yet, give Stay Hot Pod at Stay Hot Pod a follow on TikTok and now also on Twitter. We're working on getting the Instagram up, but apparently the account got banned. So we might have to create like an alias temporarily. But as always, there's content. Stay cold. Stay cold pod. No, but as
every
always,
picture we post is in inverse color.
They don't want to see us win.
Right.
They don't want to see us win.
They don't want to see us win. But before we hop in to fantasy stuff, I figured we should talk about the NBA Finals. Theo, I just want to make sure, like,
we've got to.
Are you okay? I just want to make sure you're okay, Theo. That's really all I want to do.
I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine with my favorite teams losing, and it takes me 2 seconds to get over it. It takes me 2 seconds to get over it. Like after the Packers lost to Tom Brady with the trip to the Super Bowl on the line, I was fine within 5 minutes. I got over it. I'm free from the shackles of my day getting ruined by big losses. I really am. I appreciate
the Browns lost to the Jets, and I scored 1,000 points on them in Madden.
I appreciate.
Like we are not the same.
I appreciate the season that the Suns had. I liked watching all their playoff wins. I appreciate Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks. And if we had to lose to someone, I'm glad it was Wisconsin sports. Clearly, we got outplayed. I don't know. We lost, and that's what happened. And that's how I feel. I guess we lost. It sucks. I wish we won, but I'm not gonna let it. Not going to let it ruin my day too much.
If that happened to the Hornets, I can't lie. Because here's the thing, like,
I guess we'll never know though, so it's okay.
If the Hornets get to the finals ever, because the Hornets have never even been to the conference finals.
Right.
The Hornets get to the finals, like, that's their one shot in my lifetime at it. They don't get it. They don't get like a second chance. So I don't know. I thought the Suns could have won that series.
They could have.
There was a couple of games they needed to close out, and if DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker had played better, we'd be watching a Game 7.
Right.
Particularly Ayton, just awful. I mean, legitimately, they looked better with Frank Kaminsky out there. They legitimately looked better with Frank Kaminsky out there. I was stunned how bad he played.
Wasn't that something that we talked about, like going into even the Lakers series, was whether or not Ayton was going to be consistently.
Well, Ayton played wonderful, in the not finals series. Like he was arguably.
That's what I'm saying. But like
best
going
player.
into the playoffs. But like going into the playoffs, I remember we had this discussion of like that's is Ayton is going to have to be able to play with some of the best centers in the league, and he was up until the finals. So maybe it was just like that level of play was not sustainable.
Right. Well, he turned back into regular season Ayton.
Yeah, part of it was just he couldn't handle Giannis, but even beyond that, he was missing easy layups that we got used to seeing him hit. And if he had just been able to make that, I think they win that game. And I think Game 5 was really winnable too. So I'm a little frustrated we aren't watching a Game 7. I'm not mad that the Bucks won, but I would have liked to see a Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Suns were up 2-0. They're a good team. They could have won 2 more if you're up 2-0. But like, I know you don't have all your star players playing well at the same time. Like Chris Paul was kind of choking for a little bit, and Booker kind of choked in the end. Like you got to get everyone on a consistent level.
Chris Paul was losing the ball a lot.
And Chris Paul, this finals is probably going to get overhyped or like overhated for him because he didn't play horrible the entire. And like I feel like, I mean, if this season negatively affects how you view Chris Paul, like that's weird. like he played very well this season, and he got to the finals, and he had that monster game to get them to the finals, and he's never won the finals before. So like, it's not like this is some like new thing for him. So I don't think that this season for Chris Paul should affect how anyone views him negatively. It might not change. It might not elevate him to this like level that it would have if he won, but like it was one of his better seasons probably.
Well, yeah. And I don't know. I feel like Chris Paul had superstar expectations. People are like, oh, he needs to attack more. It's like, he's not like that. I don't know what to tell you. He's not a superstar Giannis level player. He's 36 years old.
Right.
He had a really bad Game 4, but I didn't think overall he was that bad.
Yeah. And I mean, without him, obviously they don't go to the finals. Like,
no.
Yeah, like is he good enough to be at this point in the career, and maybe at any point in his career, is he the type of guy who is like the best player on a finals team? No, but like, is that something that like most guys ever are? Is that something Steve Nash ever was? Is that something like a lot of great players ever were? No. So like, I don't know. I don't think that this really changes how I view Chris Paul, except in maybe even a positive way, because he did get us there.
Yeah. I mean, there's only about like 20 of those guys ever in the history of the NBA.
Do you guys see the Suns getting back to the finals or even close?
No,
I don't. I mean, it was just kind of a...
That was blunt.
They're not built like a dynasty.
They're not better than the Clippers. They're not better than the Lakers. Maybe the Clippers are going to have problems because I don't know how long Kawhi's injury is going to take them to get back. But I mean, is Chris Paul going to even be on the team next year? Right. I don't know.
If I was free agent,
he wants to be in LA though. I think odds are he's coming back. It's particularly now that he's injured. I don't know if a team's going to be willing to. Not that a team wouldn't be willing to get quiet. I don't know. It's just a weird circumstance. He made a whole big point about going to Los Angeles in particular just to leave 2 years later. And the Clippers made the Western Conference Finals. So I think he stays.
Yeah. And even if they do stay, I mean, they caught a lot of breaks to be where they were in this series. Like they're not built like this Warriors, Curry, Clay, young play, like two Draymond, like they're not quite built like that. Like Booker is really good, but he's not like Curry or Clay good, probably, especially Curry. And like Ayton is good, but I don't know if he's like Draymond good. Like, and like there's no LeBron on the team that's going to run things. Like it's just not built like that team that just gets back over and over again. And again, they caught a lot of breaks this postseason. So I don't see them as a team that's going to be like reliably back in the conference finals or the finals. Like they'll probably make the playoffs for the foreseeable future. But I mean, even that, it'll probably look a lot like the Heat or maybe the Raptors.
I think one way to look at it is like, okay, are the Suns going to play easier opponents in a finals run from here on out? Nope. No. Are they going to get better?
Okay.
Probably not.
Right.
They don't have, unless Ayton or Booker takes a big step, I don't see how they get way, way better. And they probably need to get considerably better, because if they have to play a healthy Lakers team and like a healthy Nets team maybe, and a healthy Clippers team.
A healthy Nuggets team even.
A healthy Nuggets team. Yeah. I mean, those...
Except what you're forgetting is that we're going to trade for Kawhi Leonard, and you're forgetting that Bridges and Ayton are getting sent in a package to LA for Kawhi. And,
I am forgetting that. My fault.
Campaign's going to take a step.
Campaign is going to take a step, and he's going to take over for Chris Paul. Like we went 2-0 against the Clippers. So it's going to be Campaign who's going to be playing even better than Chris Paul ever was. And then we're going to have Kawhi. And then Dario is going to take another step.
And Frank Kaminsky will get more minutes.
Frank Kaminsky will get more minutes, and he's going to become like the guy who was hyped up to be out of college. It's going to be awesome.
Suns in 3.
Suns in 4.
Not just to talk about the Suns, though. The team that actually won the title did a pretty good job. Giannis, Chris Middleton, the whole squad. Pretty solid.
Yeah? You think they're a good team, Matt?
I think they're all right.
Yeah, Giannis is such an up and down like postseason. Like there were times where we were like maybe kind of being too harsh on Giannis after some questionable games or games where he, didn't look like the number one player on a championship team. But at the end of the day,
I mean, he was shooting like 40% from the line.
You got to step back now and like just take in all the accolades and all the things that he's accomplished and the sheer Shaquille O'Neal type dominance physically that he shows. And it's like you get into some pretty scary conversations when you step back and look at where he is at his age.
I'll say this about Giannis. He's super dominant. I don't think there's anybody that can stop him. But you can certainly do a better job of defending him than the Suns did. Do not fool yourself into thinking that that's just how he is and no one can ever – he can be defended better than he was against the Suns. But I think what it really came down to is his confidence to go to the line and the fact that he hit those shots. Because if he was scared to go to the line, totally different game. And Ayton he's not a bad defender, but he just – knew what he was doing and couldn't stop it anyway. It was crazy.
I mean, he was rattled. He was jumping on Giannis pump fakes at like early in the game, and like just the lights were maybe too bright at that moment in that elimination game for Ayton. But like, yeah, I mean, the Heat did a decent job defending him. I mean, obviously we've seen Giannis's playoff success in years before this. I don't think this year he took some like massive step and was like way better this year than he was in previous years when he kind of slowed down in the playoffs. And even in series before this, I mean, there was some like, especially the Heat game. The Heat series, they swept the Heat, but it was because like off the bench, they had like these snipers. Like Giannis was not at his peak in that game. But I mean, still, 2 MVPs, finals MVP, one of the most dominant finals like performances of all time. Like, I feel like,
especially one of the most dominant closeout games.
Right.
That 50, 10 boards and 5 blocks?
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and like the blocks were just insane. Like what he was doing defensively was honestly like those 5 blocks were all just brutal stuff. Like,
yeah, that's what I said on my TikTok, is that what was so impressive about it is not only that he dropped 50, but he was consistently attacking on offense and then had the energy to go back and play high level defense too. So many times you'll see guys not be able to do that, and I can never blame them. But Giannis is able to do both.
Yeah, and I've seen like the rise of like, there's who has the deepest bag on like that dialogue has kind of happened on Twitter and TikTok recently. It's like LeBron has no bag, Giannis has no bag. It's like, okay, maybe it's not Kyrie out here, but like to have that kind of energy level through the entire game and that kind of physical dominance is like, it seems to work pretty well.
Who cares if you don't have a bag?
Seems like pretty
if you're going to drop 50.
Right. Seems like it works out pretty well. It seems like it works out pretty well for LeBron and Giannis here. So Giannis is definitely like, shut up everyone. And if he keeps going like this, you know, he's going to get in some pretty high level conversations.
You know, I've been thinking, if he does end up in the GOAT debate, held to GOAT standards, you'll see people talk about like, oh, LeBron played with this many All-Stars, and they'll include like Shaq, because he played with Shaq at the end of his career, and Ray Allen, when he played with Ray Allen when he was at the end of his career. You're going to hear people be like, oh, Giannis had 4 All-Stars on that team, or 4 players who at least were All-Stars at one point, and Jeff Teague and Brooke Lopez.
Jeff Teague. Yeah.
No, I think at some point, if he keeps playing at this level, he'll end up in that kind of a dialogue. I asked a question a while back about whether or not he actually is in that dialogue, and at that point, you know, people were saying no, but you know, if he gets another MVP,
I mean,
you know,
he's got such a long way to go to get mentioned.
That's what I'm saying.
LeBron.
He's only, like 26?
LeBron made 10 straight or like 10 finals, and Michael Jordan won 6.
Like, it was like 9 straight finals.
Like he at age 26, like, yes, he is ahead of like almost everyone, but like to get into that, I don't think that
he's ahead of where Jordan and LeBron were, but he's not ahead of everybody.
Right.
Like Tim Duncan was ahead of where Giannis was at this point in his career. It's not about when you start, it's about how long you can do it.
Right.
And like, besides, LeBron was 27 when he won his first finals. Giannis is 26 right now.
Right. I think Giannis, he could end maybe in like that Hakeem Olajuwon range, but like to make like 10 straight, like LeBron and Jordan and Kareem, you could also maybe put him up there, are just in such a different like league when it comes to accolades and all that. It's just like, I don't see him making or winning like 5 finals or anything ridiculous, which is what he would probably need to get in that LeBron tier. But anyway, the Giannis is super good. The Bucks are obvious. Middleton was fantastic. Drew Holiday defensively, just masterpiece performance. Like, PJ Tucker was annoying. Like, I don't know what else. Like,
I literally said that I think the Bucks put on a masterclass for like defense, especially in Game 6. But we could talk about the finals all day. Let's hop into some fantasy football, and we're actually starting a fantasy league with the first ever inaugural Stay Hot Fantasy Football League, and we're gonna do a big announcement for who's gonna be joining us. There's going to be a lot of big names, special characters.
I don't think people realize how big these names could really be.
Yeah, we're thinking the most popular fantasy football league,
highest profile fantasy football. So no one draft, because I got to win this league, huh? Like, no one draft the sleepers. I'm about to say, except if anyone else not in this league hears it, you're good to go. But
maybe you should keep like your really big guys to yourself. Maybe that's something you need. But today, yeah, we're just going to give you a taste of who we think, you know, could be sleepers, you know, guys who we think might be worth picks later in the draft, that kind of stuff. And I think we're mostly gearing towards half PPR, but I guess it can apply for PPR as well. And we're going to stick with the major positions, you know, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and give you all the good. So starting with tight end, you know, I think this is an interesting position because a lot of people, you know, kind of have their top 3 of like Kittle, Kelsey, and Waller, and then some people have Pitts. You know, let's start with you, Theo. Who's your big, or if you have 2, who are your big fantasy sleepers at tight end?
I don't know. I think that you look at maybe Gerald Everett in Seattle is a guy that I like a lot. I feel like the opportunity for him, I mean, it's been a long time that he's been in the league now, but in a new scenery in Seattle, I feel like he's got a lot of talent and can kind of have a late breakout season because his athletic profile is nice to see. I think that they've got, you know, obviously a quarterback in Seattle that can hit every throw. He's not going to have to deal with like, you know, bad quarterback play there. And the other guy there is Will Dissly, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like Gerald Everett has a little bit more like upside to his game there. So he's someone that comes to mind for me. Yeah.
And also I guess the other thing with Seattle is that's when you have two premier receivers like Lockett and Metcalf, that can kind of take away defenders, if you're, kind of a guy who's under everyone's radar.
Yeah, and one other guy that I'm going to say is O.J. Howard down in Tampa Bay. Like, he was a guy that was drafted to be, such a safe pick at tight end, and he's had his issues and he's had his injuries. But, in 4 games before he got hurt last year, he had 2 touchdowns. Gronk is kind of old. I think Brait is gone, if I remember correctly. And O.J. Howard is still, a guy who hasn't really, I don't know. I feel like he's another guy that people have kind of forgot about because he's kind of been underwhelming. But I feel like if he gets his opportunities, he's still got talent to succeed there.
Yeah. I don't disagree that he has the talent, but I just feel like it's going to be tough to get targets there.
Yeah, that's true.
He might be like the 6th option.
That's the same issue with the Browns. It's like I want to pick guys on the Browns to be sleepers, but it's like there's so many guys there. It's like how can you even guess who's getting the ball?
Yeah, that is true. There is a lot of guys down there. Maybe he gets traded mid-season. That's the other thing. Is I could see that happening, and he just like pops up out of pops up somewhere else.
If you want to bank on a trade, then James Robinson for a running back. If he gets moved, you're golden. As far as tight ends go, you said Everett. I'll go the other side to that. And I'll say Tyler Higbee. The big problem that the Rams had is that they just had 2 good tight ends. And you're like, both these guys could be solid in fantasy if they weren't on a team that had the other guy. And now that Everett's gone to Seattle, I want to invest in that Rams offense. I kind of think Higbee could be like the 3rd receiving option on that team, which for a tight end will probably get him some pretty solid numbers. And even then he finishes the tight end 16, which is not horrible by any stretch last year. So if he just gets a bump in targets, which being 100% honest, I don't know how much I trust Van Jefferson or Tutu Atwell to take a bunch of targets. Not to go against my own brand here because I love the hype of Van Jefferson. But you could get a pretty good steal with Higbee. The other guy I'd want to throw out there, and I have brought him up before, so excuse me. But Irv Smith Jr., kind of a similar situation, except I think Irv Smith Jr. is really, really, really talented. I think he's going to be on the field for all of the offensive snaps pretty much. They spent high capital on him. He did really well when Rudolph wasn't playing. He's got, he's a deep threat. He's a threat after the catch, problem in matchups. So I think he's another guy to expect to be on an offense that I like, and a guy who I expect to get more targets this season because of change in personnel.
I was going to say Irv Smith, but I knew you liked Irv Smith, so I held back.
He's on my fantasy team, though.
I'm just always looking out for you, man. I know I'm going to get some heat because I don't think he's necessarily super underrated. But I think TJ Hawkinson flies a little bit under people's radar just in terms of value because there isn't a lot going on with that Lions offense. So if there's anyone, I have like 3 guys on on the Lions team that I think could be sleepers in fantasy because one of those 3 I think is gonna have like a ton of production just because there's not a lot of production to go around in that offense. So someone's going to end up doing really, really well. I think Hawkinson's the most likely just because I think has the best set of tools. But as far as guys who I think are more sleeper oriented, as in lower in the average draft, it's going to be one of either Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry. In the Patriots offense, there are basically no receivers. And it's kind of the same situation with Hawkinson. It's one of those guys is going to go off. If not both of them. The Patriots like to run a lot of 2 tight end set. They did it last year, except they weren't good at tight end. With Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, I could very easily see one, if not both of them, going for 700 plus yards.
If you had to say it was going to be one of them, which one would you bet on?
I kind of like Jonnu Smith more. Hunter Henry's good, but I feel like Jonnu Smith, I feel safer with. Both of them are predicted to go like below 150 in the draft or like past 150 in the draft. But I think Smith might be a safer pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like both of those. I feel like Henry has been more productive in his career thus far. I know Jonnu has never put up big yard totals, although he did have the touchdowns last year. But Jonnu Smith has a ton of talent, and like especially after the catch off.
They both have a lot of talent. They're both super talented. So like that's what I'm saying. Like it's just a matter of who gets the ball more. Like one of them is going to get a little bit more action on offense, and I don't know if I can predict it, but I think one of those guys is going to do really well this year. But moving on to running back, this one I think is interesting. I have a lot of potential guys here, but Theo, I want to know who you have. Who's your favorite?
Well, the first guy I've got is someone that everyone has seemed to forget about, and everyone thinks he's so bad, and I don't think he is. I've got James Conner down in Arizona. Yeah, he signed a $1.8 million deal, 1 year, $1.8 million deal. That is nothing for a guy who is probably going to be the lead back there. Like, yes, Chase Edmonds is there to be kind of a change of pace guy. Yes, he's going to eat into the targets there. But like, is Chase Edmonds really the number one guy, or is he kind of the third down back? And to me, James Conner seems like a lead back, and Chase Edmonds kind of seems like a change-up guy. And when Chase Edmonds got that chance to like get a ton of carries and a big workload last season, he kind of faltered. He didn't have a great game. James Conner is a guy who I have a little bit of sympathy for because A, the Steelers' offense was predictable. As you have heard, if you've listened to me, Big Ben has a little bit of a tell that may have, I think, affected the running game, because I think it's possible that you could kind of get a head start on if it was a run or a pass or not. The Steelers' offensive line was not all that great. James Conner breaks a lot of tackles. He's going to get a lot of light boxes because the Cardinals are so spread out. I think that James Conner is going to be better than that running back. He's like the 33rd running back off the board right now. I think he's substantially better than that. Yeah, no,
Connor's a really good, especially with like Kenyon Drake gone. You know, he'll definitely be getting a lot of touches. My only concern is he's not one to like. I know that like he can break tackles, but it's not like
he is a good tackle breaker. Yeah, he's very good at it.
He's not as explosive as someone like, yeah, I mean, obviously no one's as explosive as like Nick Chubb, and I hate to compare James Conner to Nick Chubb. I feel like that's not fair. But like when you talk about breaking tackles, it's like, okay, I break a tackle, but then it's like, are you breaking a tackle and you're getting like 1 yard extra, or are you breaking a tackle and you're getting like 15 yards extra?
Right. Yeah, no, he's not this. But like the guys who can break a tackle and get like 15 yards extra are like the greatest running backs in the league right now. And it's like all those guys are going to go in the top 10 for running backs. Like if you want someone after those guys who is going to get a lot of like one-on-one opportunities. And like I said, the Arizona is so spread out that he's going to get those one-on-one opportunities. Kenyon Drake couldn't break tackles to save his life last year. James Conner is going to be better than him. And I feel like he's going to earn those lead back like designations over Chase Edmonds.
Like that a lot. Matt, who's your guy?
Mike Davis.
Mike Davis.
I should have known.
And I know it's like, oh, you're picking a Panthers player, a guy who did play for the Panthers.
No, Mike
Davis is the running back 29 in ADP, and he is the guy on his team.
Yes.
And that makes no sense.
On an Arthur Smith team that runs the ball like kind of a lot. And he's like good.
I think I would take almost any running back who was the guy at 29 compared to other running back. Like a 29th running back, you'd assume that he is splitting time with someone else or like a third down guy. No. And he was legitimately good too. I think it makes no sense why he's getting drafted that low. He can catch the ball too. Don't get it twisted. It's not like he does it all. He's going to get a ton of touches on a team that wants to run a lot with a pretty solid offense overall. I don't see why. I've got him in between. I've got him in between J.K. Dobbins and Josh Jacobs on my little list that I've got in front of me. Like I've got him at like 14 or 15, like in that range. I don't understand. He was the other guy that I had marked, but I figured one of you guys might talk about him. So I completely agree with you. He's considered he's below like Myles Gaskin. And I
Hey, Myles Gaskin's the guy there too, though. Myles Gaskin is also.
I don't think Gaskin's got nearly as big of a hold. I don't dislike Gaskins. I don't mean to say that, but I don't think he's got nearly as good of a hold on that job as Mike Davis does on the Atlanta job. Who is backing up him right now? I know his name. I can't think of it. Somebody Olsen, right?
Maybe. Is it Ito Smith? Is he still there? I think
he's gone. I really think he's the only. Like, obviously, somebody else is going to get touches. They're not just going to only feed one running back. That'd be kind of weird. But I don't know. I think he could be like borderline running back one territory.
No, I agree with you.
So I like on their depth chart. Do you know? Okay, it's obviously not the official depth chart. And obviously this isn't true, but do you know who they have listed on ESPN right now?
Is it Cordero Patterson?
It is.
Let's go. I knew it.
I mean, come on. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I think at 29, that's a ridiculous steal. Maybe the biggest sleeper, if that's really true, he's going at 29 among running backs, maybe the biggest sleeper in fantasy right now.
Well, I guess I have some big shoes to fill with a sleeper fantasy running back. The only concern with this guy is that there's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of running backs in that room. Wayne Gallman.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because he's with the 49ers now. But when Saquon was hurt, when Saquon wasn't playing, Gallman was efficient. He was productive. And the only problem is that there's like Raheem Mostert's there, Trey Sermon. I think they added another guy in that building. Like, there's a lot of guys who are going to be getting touches in that offense at running back. But if there's anyone that I trust to, stay healthy and, get production when he's on the field, it's Gallman.
So what does a fantasy relevant Wayne Gallman season look like for you? Like, honestly, how does that?
Well, okay. Here's my thing, right? It's not even like, oh, well, what does he have to do to be relevant? Let me tell you who's ahead of him in ADP. Chuba Hubbard, Darrell Williams, Phillip Lindsay, Giovanni Bernard, Rashad Penny, Jeff Wilson, Hines I can understand maybe, James White maybe. Like, it's just like, are you trusting, Damian Williams to have a better season than Wayne Gallman? I don't know if
Williams? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, but like
I get where you're coming from, but even then, I don't know if we see a top 20 finish from any 49ers running back, and he's probably not the number one guy.
That's fair. Okay, Raheem Mostert has injury issues, right? True. We know that. Trey Sermon's a rookie.
I don't know if I care about that for a running back. Maybe a little bit, but I don't really care. Being a rookie doesn't scare me that much for running backs.
It's not that it scares me, but like, think about when Nick Chubb was a rookie. Nick Chubb was the best running back in that building, but he wasn't getting any touches. It didn't matter.
Who was the head coach at that time?
Fair.
I don't know. I just think that even if both those guys were to get hurt, he's probably not getting enough touches and is like completely touchdown dependent. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he ends up the guy, but that's not what the 49ers do. They're totally committed to running back by committee.
I know they're that committee type of system.
And he might be, and he's like the third guy in that committee, maybe. I don't disagree
he's third
with you
on the depth chart right now, I think.
I don't disagree with you that he's talented. Like, he is talented. And if they gave him a bunch of touches, I'm sure he would be fantasy relevant, but I don't trust that he's going to get that.
That's totally fair. The only other guy I would consider, and it's a guy that we do talk about a lot, is Pollard. I think at some point, maybe this year, Pollard will get substantial touches.
I don't know, because I saw that I tweeted that executive poll where some executive has to be from the Cowboys.
It was definitely Jerry Jones. It was definitely Jerry Jones.
I kind of think, and like, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be like super fantasy relevant, even though he probably should be. Matt, do you have the ADP list in front of you?
I do.
I have.
Where is Michael Carter?
Michael Carter, that was somebody else I had on my list. It is very low. I forget who he was below that made me put him on the list.
He's at 84 in ADP. behind Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Chase Edmonds, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Travis Etienne.
I was very impressed watching Michael Carter tape from college. Like, I was very, very impressed. And he's a guy who averaged 6.6 yards per carry. And he's a guy who cut into the carries of Javonte Williams. And like Javonte Williams is super talented, and they still couldn't keep Michael Carter off the field because his footwork is so good. His vision is so good. He's very good as a receiver. And in that Jets backfield, I think he's going to be someone who is smart and like hardworking and like has all the intangibles that is going to gain the trust of his coaches. And like, who else is on the Jets? Tevin Coleman. Like, they're going to have that 49ers type of running game. And I really like, I know that the track record between like kind of short 4th round running backs is like bad, but like he's such a good receiver and his vision is so good that I feel like he's going to be someone that the coaches really trust like soon. I feel like he's going to be a guy that could kind of has a path to playing time as a rookie.
I could see it.
Yeah. No, I like both of those running backs, Carter and Williams, are really talented. I've been saying I think Javonte Williams has a lot of potential to be, rookie of the year. I don't know how, he does fantasy wise, especially with Melvin Gordon. In that backfield, there's a lot of talk about Melvin Gordon probably being the lead back and Williams kind of being that change of pace guy. So that would be the only concern there as far as Williams being a big fantasy guy. We talked about, Kenyon Drake not being able to break tackles, but I kind of feel like the biggest problem that the Raiders had last year running the ball with Josh Jacobs is that he just can't. He has no breakaway speed, none. And their O-line's worse. I get that, but if anyone's gonna have breakaway speed, it's Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is a fast, elusive. He's a total change of pace from Josh Jacobs. And I don't know if I'd see him getting the touches, and I definitely don't know if their O-line's as good as it was last year. It definitely isn't. But if he can get some quality touches, some open field looks, I could see him doing pretty well. I mean, he's at 118 in ADP, kind of in that he's like just above Zach Moss. Like
Kenyon Drake tricked me last year. I was a big Kenyon Drake fan, and he totally let me down. And I didn't like it. And I don't want to say anything nice about Kenyon Drake anymore because I drafted him in like the 2nd round.
You're just done with Kenyon Drake now.
I'm done with him. And then he got off to such a poor start. I guess he did end with like almost 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns.
I mean, so he's talented.
Maybe he did better than I remember him doing, but I just remember being such a disappointment and I looked dumb. So
it's all about where you draft him.
Yeah,
that's really all it comes down to is where you draft him. Don't draft him in like the 1st round, but like, no, I think Kenyon Drake has some decent talent. But you know what? Let's move on.
I got one more little guy.
You got one more? Okay.
One more little guy. I'm going to say Jamal Williams just because Dan Campbell is like obsessed with like toughness, their coach over there. Like he's obsessed with like just being a tough guy.
Don't they also have Swift?
Yeah, but I'm saying like Swift is like 5'9", and if he can't block, like I like both the Lions, I think are going to run it a billion times and they have a really good offensive line. So I like Swift a lot too, but like Swift is a tiny little dude. And if he gets like hurt, like I could see like Jamal Williams coming in like this. I'm talking like deep leagues, like last couple rounds, like someone that you could like pick up and maybe the coach just likes that he blocks and he gets too many. And in Green Bay, he always got too many carries. Like Aaron Jones was just so clearly the better back. And they still would give Jamal Williams the ball too much because of his blocking ability. And it's just, so that's another guy. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay. I'll roll with it. But moving on to wide receiver. Wide receiver, I think, has the biggest potential for breakout guys, especially guys that, you don't always expect. Who would you say is kind of in that category of sleeper wide receivers in fantasy?
I'll throw it to Matt because I just talked a lot.
There's a lot of guys I'm looking at that I'm excited for. I'm looking at ADP and I see Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool all getting picked above guys like Odell and DJ Chark and Cortland Sutton. And I think a lot of those guys I trust to have like 1,000 yards or whatnot, but I'm going to go with Robby Anderson. I think Robby Anderson's getting picked below Tyler Boyd right now. He's a wide receiver 35. He's legitimately really good. And even if you don't trust Sam Darnold, he does have a history of putting up good numbers with Sam Darnold. That's a good connection right there. If Anderson was able to put up some numbers when they had Curtis Samuel, I'm not really worried about him not getting the targets because, last year the Panthers also had a ton of guys who they had to get the ball to. So I don't know. I feel like he's just a little low. He's at 35. I probably have him more around 30-ish in that range, maybe even a little higher.
He's ranked 35 among receivers.
Yeah, he's ranked 35 among receivers, and I think he should be a little bit higher. I like him a little bit more than that.
Okay.
I've got a guy that none of you have ever heard of. His name is Marquez Callaway, and none of you better draft him because Marquez Callaway is my deep in the bag sleeper for the Saints, and he's a guy who only got 21 accurate targets last year, and he caught all 21 of them. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, who is playing there that's not named Michael Thomas in that wide receiving core? And I'm seeing like Traquan Smith, who should have broken out like a while ago and really hasn't. And then they've got that Harris guy who's kind of a special teams ace. I think Marquez Callaway, even though he's an undrafted free agent, is the guy who might be the most exciting proposition there, who might get some opportunities. And then I'm like, okay, I looked at all the stats. I'm like, okay, I kind of like what I'm seeing here. There's some like deep potential here. And then I looked him up on Twitter, and the first thing that came up was Emmanuel Sanders talking about Marquez Callaway and just raving about him. And like, you need this guy, Marquez Callaway is going to be such a good player for us. He's so good. The things he does in practice, he's got the coaches. He's like talking about how much everyone loves Marquez Callaway and how good he is. I'm like, okay, I'm sold on this Marquez Callaway guy. And he's something I'm definitely going to be paying attention to in preseason because I feel like, again, this is a guy who caught all of his accurate targets. I looked at some of his tape and there was like some good route running there. I'm like, everyone, the teammates just like went out of their way to praise him. There's a path to a lot of touches there. I'm like, okay, that's someone that I'm really, really interested in as a deep in the bag sleeper.
So here's the thing, man. Like, in my fantasy league, it's 70 deep. I've got him on my fantasy team. I know who you're talking about.
You have Marquez Callaway?
I do have him. I picked him up in free agency last year. That's my guy. I really like him.
Let's go, Marquez
totally
Callaway.
Traquan Smith. Even though I think that he might end up, like he could still be the third receiving option on that team very reasonably. Maybe fourth if Troutman's good. But I don't think their passing attack's going to be that bad. I really like him too. Maybe not in regular fantasy. It just might be hard for him to do that. But if you're playing in a deep league or you're playing in like a best ball league or you just want somebody totally off the radar or your dynasty or whatever, Callaway has a good opportunity to put up some numbers.
Yes.
Callaway does not appear on ADP.
They're sleeping on Marquez Callaway.
He's like, he's just non-existent. That's
probably one for only real deep leagues.
Yeah, that is incredibly deep. You won't have to draft him.
I can't believe he's on your team, man.
You will be able to get him at like undrafted free agent in fantasy, like probably.
If he has if he like gets like 7 targets week 1, pick him up immediately though. Like if he shows anything out of the gate preseason, anything,
I'll keep that in mind.
Like,
even though I'm only probably going to be into, that's what I was saying. I was saying if I'm in another league, I was saying if I'm going to be in another league, but I'm probably only going to be in, the ones I'm in with you guys, because I just don't like being in that many fantasy leagues, because otherwise I just like lose focus on them. But if I had to go with a receiver, I have a few guys, honestly. I'm going to start with the guy who is dead last in receiver ADP ranking, DeSean Jackson. Why is he dead last in ADP?
Probably because of Tutu Atwell.
I mean, okay. let's.
He's like wide receiver 5.
But like okay, you're telling me you're taking Brashard Perriman over?
Oh God, yes. Oh, no doubt.
You're taking you're taking you're taking Alan Lazard. You're taking Jacoby Myers. You're taking AJ Green.
Yes, probably.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure, AJ Green.
Brashard Perriman is someone I had labeled as a sleeper. Like Brashard Perriman might be the wide receiver 1 on the. Yes, he's like the best wide receiver on the Lions. Obviously, I'm taking him over.
I don't know if he is the best wide receiver on the Lions. So okay, I'll go with. I'll tell you my other guys who I think could be getting some targets in the Lions that we're not talking about. First one's Tyrell Williams.
Yeah,
I love Tyrell Williams. Might be
a sleeper.
I agree.
I loved him on the Raiders. Matt knows I loved him on the Raiders. And then the other one is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know we loved him coming out of college. I don't know if he gets 1 million targets in that offense. Again, between Hawkinson, Tyrell Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and DeAndre Swift's in that offense. There's only one of those guys is really going to have a super explosive season as far as receiving goes, and I don't know which one it is. My guess is probably Hawkinson is going to be that guy, but I could see Williams, breaking out a little bit, having a few big games, and I could see St. Brown breaking out a little bit, having a few big games.
I guess, but I would still take Perriman, who has a path to being the best wide receiver on his team, over Deshaun Watson or DeSean Jackson.
I don't think Perriman's better than Tyrell Williams. I'm going to keep it real with you.
DeSean Jackson has played 8 games in the last 2 years total.
That's fair.
And he's like maybe at best the wide receiver 3, but even that seems unrealistic.
He's not
I just feel like he's a guy who has take the top off of defense level speed.
But that's not like a good fantasy thing. That's like 1 week he might have like a decent amount of points, but like consistently week to week, he's not startable. Like you might miss some big games if you don't have him, but or a big play really. But I wouldn't touch DeSean Jackson. I'd rather have Tutu Atwell, especially since Cam Akers got hurt. He's going to play some running back. Maybe, I don't know, some jet sweeps.
Looking at the fantasy ADP for receivers makes you realize how deep that position is in the NFL. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 42, and he's really good. Like he's great. And I would say that's like, oh, they're sleeping on him. But then you look at some of the guys ahead of him. Maybe that is kind of low. Even looking at this, maybe that is low because Brandon Cooks is 41. I think both those guys are probably a little bit better than that. But still.
Where is Brandon Ayuk?
He's really high.
Is he?
He is 26.
Oh, okay. All right. Then he's definitely not a sleeper.
Yeah, I don't think he's a sleeper either.
No, he's not.
Not that I don't like him. Even further below Curtis Samuel, someone even further below Curtis Samuel that shocked me a little bit is Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is like really low, and I feel like that's someone who should be getting involved in the Bears offense a lot more.
I feel like Darnell Mooney's if anything over. All I hear is how good Darnell Mooney is all the time.
He's a good player. Everyone always shows that clip of Darnell Mooney like beating Jalen Ramsey on that one route, and I always think it's like super funny because it's just like that's the only thing people are like. Darnell Mooney's great because he beat Jalen Ramsey one time, but I do think Darnell Mooney has like a good skill set. I think he can do a lot of things for that Bears offense. I'm just surprised that he's below Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley was good last year, and then the Bills added Emmanuel Sanders. Like I'd rather have Cole Beasley than in fantasy. Mooney. You'd rather have Cole Beasley than Darnell Mooney?
Yes,
I don't know. I could see having like Mike Williams maybe. I could see Terrace Marshall. Bateman, I could understand. And that's where, the idea of like receivers just really deep. But then there's some guys where I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I do want T.Y. Hilton. I don't know if I don't know if I do want Devontae Parker because I don't know if Tua is going to get him the football. Like,
I guess.
Kind of like Aguilar at 64. I think that's kind of good. Might be the wide receiver 1 on a team. Could get some yards.
That's fair. Where is T.Y. Hilton ranked?
T.Y. Hilton. I don't know.
T.Y. Hilton is
48.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe about where he belongs. I don't know. But he's another guy that could maybe return to form. Phillip Rivers couldn't really get the ball like downfield at all, which is kind of his skill set. But at the same time, Carson Wentz wasn't exactly the best deep ball thrower in the world last year. And he doesn't really have a history of success with like little speedy deep threats. He has success with big tight end or Alshon Jeffrey type guys. So I don't know. Another Colts guy, though, I talked about him a little bit earlier, but Paris Campbell was a guy who was supposed to break out last year. And then in week 1, he was so good and he kind of did. And then he tore like everything up in his knee. And now he is forgotten about. No one knows who he is. But I think Paris Campbell is a guy who maybe the breakout season was supposed to be last year. He got hurt. And now there's hot new guys. But Paris Campbell's a guy that maybe I would look out for a little bit because he's someone who really I was impressed with when I watched that Jaguars-Colts game. But again, it was against the Jaguars.
No, Paris Campbell's really good. And I think we could ramble about receivers forever because like Matt said, it is super deep as far as what you can do at receiver. But I think we should hop into quarterback. I think there are a lot of guys here who are projected to be a lot lower than I feel like even they should be. I don't know. But, Matt, Theo, who do you guys think is a sleeper at quarterback?
Joe Burrow.
That's fair.
No comment.
Yeah. Joe Burrow, for sure. I think he has a good chance to lead the league in passing attempts. And he's right now the quarterback 13. I get why some people might be worried maybe with the knee or whatnot. And maybe you don't think he's the most talented quarterback in the world. But I still think that their game plan is to go throw a ton. I think they've got good weapons. And I don't dislike Burrow at all. So maybe you don't like him because you don't feel like he's mobile enough. That I would get. But I could see him having a quarterback 1 finish. And right now he's not being drafted like a quarterback 1.
I agree. You say you think he could potentially lead the league in attempts. I think he's also a guy that avoids turnovers pretty well. He's not like super volatile. So I could see, him. It's not like he's throwing a million interceptions like, Jameis Winston or anything. So no, I do like that pick. I do think it's a little weird that like Justin Fields is above him, especially considering Justin Fields isn't even anticipated to start week 1.
Yeah. It's that mobility. I mean, those rushing yards that get added are so broken, like in fantasy, and like such a big help if you can get them. So it doesn't shock me that Fields is ahead of them, just because I've got them at about the same level, just because I think it's essentially a guarantee that Fields gets in the game pretty early. And he's also got that running threat. I have a funny feeling. Or Matt, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, Burrow was on pace for 650 passing attempts last season. He'll probably come close to breaking 700 this year with the extra game. I don't know. If he stays healthy with Jamar Chase too added,
I can see that, but he did attempt that many passes and he got a catastrophic injury. So like maybe they'll try to scale that back a little bit is the only counter that I would say. I have a funny feeling that at one point everyone's going to want Marcus Mariota on their team. I don't see the path for it because Derek Carr is there. But at some point this season, I don't know if he gets traded. I don't know if Derek Carr gets hurt. At one point this season, everyone is going to want Marcus Mariota on their team. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I that's my sleeper. I don't know. I have a gut feeling that at some point in like week 8, we're going to look at the transaction trends, and the number one name on there is going to be Marcus Mariota for some odd reason, because he did so good in his one game where he came back and he's mobile. And I don't know. I feel like that is a very deep sleeper that may not even do anything, but I just get a gut feeling from him.
Yeah, I could see him being like a free agent pickup, like week 4, week 5. That's definitely feasible. You know what's interesting? So, Matt, you talked about Joe Burrow's, quarterback 13? Something like that?
Yes.
All right. I want you to go 3 quarterbacks down.
Baker Mayfield at 16.
I don't know what list you're looking at. No, I'm talking about Matt Stafford.
Yeah, if Matt Stafford's being drafted as the 16th quarterback, he's a steal. But something tells me that's not true.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just looking at like his ADP is 93rd, and I'm like, that seems really low for Stafford. Like, there's been nothing but praise coming from the Rams front office. Sean McVay's like in love with him. They're going to be this super pass heavy offense, especially Cam Akers now when it goes down. Like, I find it really hard to believe. I don't think he's like actually a sleeper. I think most people know that he's really good, but I just think it's weird that like his ADP is still really, really low.
Think one of the interesting things I think about this fantasy draft cycle is like where, if at all, does Deshaun Watson get drafted? Like that is a dilemma. Once you get into the later rounds, like is it worth it? Do you think he will play this season? And if your answer is yes, because I don't know, because there's a lot of stuff going on with that situation. But like at the end of the day, just with how these cases play out and like how superstars get treated on sexual assault cases, in which case I'm talking about like they never ever get punished for it. Like I find it the most likely outcome being like he pays a settlement. Like I feel like that is the direction that this is headed. For better or worse. And like at that point, if that happens, like before the season, I don't think he just sits there for the whole year. Like I feel like someone offers the Texans something to, and I don't know, this is just me like spitballing, but that's another guy where it's like interesting to take a chance on him. Like if it gets like towards the end of the year, or maybe that's like morally wrong to take a chance on him at the end of the year, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, no. I see where you're going with it, and I agree that if someone makes a move for him, then like, yeah, he could be productive. I just don't see a scenario playing out where someone does want to take I don't know. I'm just like, if I'm a front office, I would have to be so desperate to make a move on Deshaun Watson, I think. Just like from a moral obligation standpoint, I'm like, I can't put that kind of a guy in my
front offices are not moral. Like we see Tyreek Hill like still starting. Adrian Peterson like literally beat his son with a stick and like he got chances. Like I don't think if he pays, Bren Roethlisberger had like the same, albeit in a very different era, but like I don't know. I feel like front offices are not super moral and like they don't care that much about all this stuff. And if it blows, if it shows any sign of blowing over at all, which so many times it does for like powerful people in the country, like I feel like some front office will take a chance on him.
I think the big problem with him is like at this point, a lot of people have their quarterback situation filled out. And I think that even though a lot of teams are immoral, a lot of them aren't. I think a fair amount of teams would have him completely off their board. I don't know. I kind of think he doesn't play this year. I still think he doesn't play this year. That's the one other sleeper, and I hate to do it because we said no bringing up guys that we bring up every episode. That is not Taysom Hill.
Okay,
but I gotta rep my guy. Cam Newton is a sleeper, and this one, if you think I'm wrong about Cam Newton being better next year, fine. But I'm not wrong about him being a fantasy sleeper. He finished as a quarterback 16 last year, and he's being drafted as a quarterback 27, and I could only expect him to do better this season. Absolutely, Cam Newton should be getting drafted higher because at least, okay, maybe he's a risk, but if it pays off, Cam Newton could easily be a quarterback one. He almost was last year, and people think he was awful. You said earlier those running numbers are super important. Well, Cam Newton's going to get the running numbers. Cam Newton is going to get the goal line touches.
Didn't he lead all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns?
Probably.
Last year?
He always does. So I just think if you want a backup, if you don't get a super high-ranked quarterback that you're in love with, take a chance as your backup, Cam Newton. If it doesn't work out, pick up someone else.
I'm just humbly asking you to consider Cam Newton.
I always am.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right that he is a little bit of a secret. I said Taysom Hill, who's another guy that we talk about, but like Taysom Hill is a guy that definitely should be started, and like he started in a couple games last year, and he put up good fantasy numbers just because of those like rushing numbers too. And I like there's a good chance that Jameis Winston like screws up and throws like picks. And you know that Sean Payton is always looking to get Taysom Hill involved with things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I feel like Taysom Hill is like in deep leagues is like draftable because like it's so likely that he sees the field at the quarterback position at some point. I don't know if it's like all the time but I think like in some capacity you'll see Taysom Hill putting up points. And if like if Jameis gets hurt or just plays bad and throws picks, like he could definitely be put in and average like 20 points per game or something like that, which is what he was doing last year.
Theo, your guy is Drew Lock. Drew Lock ranks in like across the big board of all players. His average draft position is 223rd.
You can pick him up in free agency in any league.
Normal league. And I would genuinely pick up Drew Lock in free agency.
Okay, but that doesn't mean you had to draft. Like, I like Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock is good. Here's my Drew Lock take. I do not think Drew Lock is like this insanely good quarterback, but I think that with the Broncos roster, he is not bad enough to totally screw it up. That's like my Drew Lock take. Like, I'm not going to vouch for you to take him in fantasy.
Okay, yeah, but like 223rd. Like that's
he's a quarterback. Like you only need to roster like one or two, and if you're like in a 10-man league,
okay, we're talking about take Cam Newton if you're not in love with the quarterback you get. Drew Lock, I think, is the same way. If you're having a dicey quarterback situation, I would take Cam Newton.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you strongly. Cam Newton and Drew Lock are completely different scenarios. Even if Drew Lock starts and plays better, chance he doesn't finish as a top 20 quarterback. Cam Newton, even if he can just play the whole year, he's at least a solid backup, just off running numbers. If he gets better with these better weapons, quarterback one is very, very, very reachable for him. So I disagree.
My only concern with Cam Newton is if Mac Jones just takes over at some point.
Okay, well, I can say the same thing about Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah.
I would take maybe Tyrod Taylor over Drew Lock, like with the rushing numbers. And also a guy that, you want a really deep sleeper, I'm going to tell you Tim Boyle. I'm just making up names at this point, but Tim Boyle is the Lions backup. And again, I don't think it's impossible that he outplays Jared Goff in preseason. And I don't even think the Lions really even want Jared Goff. I literally think the Rams just offered them another first-round pick to take the contract off their hands. And if like Jared Goff looks like trash in preseason, and Tim Boyle is a Packers guy, he's their backup. He was at the Packers for a long time. The dude lights it up in preseason all the time. All right. So he's going to light it up in preseason again. And Jared Goff, if he's bad in training camp and the Lions don't even want him anyway, I'm not saying draft Tim Boyle, but like
there might be a dialogue about.
There might be a dialogue in the I'm predicting a dialogue in the preseason that Tim Boyle is a starting quarterback. I guess that's not really fantasy relevant, but he's someone I had flagged as someone who is going to get talked about as a potential starter, because
Tim Boyle finished with negative 0.9 points last season. So I'm not in love.
That's because he just got kneel downs. But trust me, you're going to see the dialogue. And I'm not saying draft. This isn't even a fantasy conversation anymore, because like, even if he does start, you probably shouldn't draft him. But like, I think that if you really want if you want someone that might start that you're not expecting, Tim Boyle, the laser show.
Yeah, if you have a super deep roster, then sure.
If you're rostering like 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm keeping it real with you. Not taking Tim Boyle as my second quarterback.
He's a handcuff for Jared Goff.
He's a handcuff. Just watch out for when he's got that starter. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, how are you guys feeling about Matt Ryan?
I like Matt Ryan, but then I looked at his ADP and it wasn't that low, so I didn't call him a sleeper. Like, that was my take.
It's 109 right now.
It's going to be low for all quarterbacks. Yeah, it's about being among quarterbacks.
I guess that's fair. I mean, it's below Deshaun Watson.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't think that's fair. Like,
I don't know. I think with Ryan, again, when you lack any sort of running ability, finishing as a quarterback one, which is what really matters in most fantasy leagues. Finishing as a quarterback one is really tough. You have to be really, really good. And I don't know if I like him more than Tannehill or Stafford or Brady.
Yeah, no, I don't like him more than Tannehill or Stafford.
And those are all guys who are already.
But if you're going to talk about Joe Burrow being a guy who could lead the league in like passing attempts, that's like Matt Ryan's MO. That's like something Matt Ryan does on the regular.
He does always pile up the yards, but again, like the rushing yards, they're just so important. And But I could see Matt, like, I literally thought about Matt Ryan. I'm like, okay, I could see Matt Ryan being a sleeper. And then I checked his average draft position. I didn't think it was low enough to designate, like, no one is talking about him. But I don't know.
Yeah.
My sleeper is mostly, I don't know. If with quarterback, it's hard just because there's so few of them. Like, there's only 32. There's no, like, so, like, I think maybe Mariota will come in and, like, be a guy, or Taysom, or maybe Watson is a guy that you stash and
you only said players who are not playing.
Well, that's sleepers. Like,
it's like backup.
Who am I gonna say? Dude,
you gotta say some of the big guys.
Quarterbacks.
I knew you were gonna say Cam. Well, I didn't say Cam because I knew you were gonna say Cam. Okay, but like, who else? I don't think I don't think Derek Carr is a sleeper. I'm deep in the bag, you guys. I'm talking about
if guys. You guys want players that no one else is gonna have. Theo's got you,
dude. When you're gonna thank me when everyone is scrambling to try to pick up Taysom Hill, and you already have him on your
Nick
team.
Boyle's ADP is 85. That's far too low.
Tim Boyle.
My fault.
Oh my god.
For quarterback, it's hard. Look, Marquez. Look, I'm gonna give everyone Marquez Callaway, and that's gonna be the most valuable thing. So,
yeah. See, the Marquez Callaway one I get, right? Because most people are already like tons of receivers on their team anyway. But how many people have more than 2 quarterbacks in a fantasy league? No one. Like, unless you're like in a dynasty league where it's like 6 quarterbacks deep or something.
Okay. I'll give you someone who's going to start then. Okay. How about Daniel Jones? I can't imagine he's getting drafted high. The wide receiving core is pretty low.
That's actually a good one.
The wide receiving core is pretty loaded. He's got a lot of running ability. Like, he's fast, and he's going to put up he's not going to put up like Lamar Jackson rushing, Jalen Hurts rushing numbers or anything. But like, it's
wheels.
He's got some wheels. So I guess if you want someone who is probably going to start, you take Daniel Jones with that wide receiving core, and you hope that he doesn't suck, I guess.
You hope that he doesn't lead the league in turnovers.
Yeah, maybe he fixes his fumble problems. Maybe he gets some nice scramble yards. So I guess
maybe he can feel pressure.
He's guaranteed to get some playing time. He's probably not getting drafted that high. That would be my sleeper that is actually going to play. How about that?
Thank you, Theo. I really appreciate that. I'm taking Daniel Jones now in the first round because
do that. Everyone
take Daniel Jones in the first round. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our fantasy segment. But I do want to let you guys know that we've read your comments for a forgotten team segment, and that is something that we're thinking about doing, and maybe a little bit of an NBA draft premiere for y'all, as well as another Stay Hot Shots episode to look out for. Tons of content coming your way for you guys on TikTok, YouTube, and the podcast channels, so make sure you don't miss out there. But we do have one more announcement that we want to make. I don't know if one of you guys want to announce it. We got this text
during the podcast. I just got this. Yeah,
I got the text too.
Yeah, Raiders training camp and NBA Summer League in Vegas this August. All 3 of us. I screw up. Look, don't judge me. But I've never met Blaiden and Matt, so we're going to meet up there in the big Nevada state, the large gambling city in the state of Nevada, to watch some summer league games. And none of us
are 21. Like, we can't gamble at all.
21.
So yeah, this is going to be tough. But
early August.
I think it's going to be a fun time. I'm really excited. Obviously Summer League's going to be cool, but I'm more excited for the Raiders training camp. I can't lie.
I don't know. Here's the thing. If I meet Theo and it turns out I don't like him, I don't know how the podcast goes forward.
All I'm saying, I'm not used to being the shortest one in the group. This is going to be weird for me. This is going to be weird for me.
Too bad.
Because Theo's 6'4", Matt, you're 6'5". I'm only 6'1", and that's like everyone who's like under 6 foot's gonna yell at me for being like, "Oh, only 6'1". But like, I don't know. I'm just like not used to this. This is gonna be weird for me.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
But it should be a fun time. We'll get a lot of content out to you guys while we're there. And obviously, I know you guys have been begging, like Matt and I went to Florida. You guys were like, "Where's Theo?" We're going to finally meet Theo, and it should be an absolute blast. But until next time, guys, Once again, as always, from Corn Boy, Dunk Boy, and your Lemon Boy, we'll catch you on the flippity flop.